Can you tell me where my country lies? Said the unicorn to his true love's eyes. It lies with me, cried the Queen of Maybe. For her merchandise he traded in his prize. Paper late, cried a voice in the crowd. Old man dies, the note he left was signed Old Father Thames. It seems he's drowned, selling England by the pound. Citizens of hope and glory, time goes by. It's the time of your life. Easy now, sit you down, chewing through your wimpy dreams. They eat without a sound, digesting England by the pound. Young man says you are what you eat well. Old man says you are what you wear. Well, you know what you are, you don't give a damn. Bursting your belt, that is your homemade share. The captain leads his dance trial through the night. Join the dance, follow on till the grey of sunset see them all. Follow on till the gold is cold, dancing out with the moonlit night. Knights in the green shields dance and shout.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the EdgeStream. It's good to be back with all of you. Glad to be here with you all on another Tuesday night. I had a great weekend this weekend. Lots happened. Of course, it was Valentine's Day, and I celebrated that with Lee Stewie. It was a lot of fun. Now, I gave her a nice Valentine, too. I think she posted it on her Telegram. After that, I did a couple of stand-up performances this weekend. The Danger Cats came to Niagara Falls this weekend. It was an awesome time. Some people went to 2 shows that weekend. I celebrated 2 people's birthday parties this weekend. So shout-outs, Pete from Tofu TV in Sarah, Ireland. Hung out with a lot of great people this weekend. It was an awesome time. I got on stage and have to say, I fucking crushed it, and I'm really proud of that. I'll probably have some footage of that for you guys to see at some point. I recorded it all, so I have it. I have it for the historical records. I played some Helen Keller and some Greta Thunberg love songs, so I'm excited to show you guys that eventually. I'm going to keep on working on all of that and, improve both my musical and my normal stand-up. I want to get back into that too. So a lot of good things coming down the pipeline. But I'm glad to be back with all of you. We got a great show tonight. Good, bad news, whatever it is, we're going to get through it. I'm going to try to give some intellectual, historical takes on the matter. Try to put it all into perspective for you guys and add a little bit of humor as well. So, once again, we are live on YouTube, Rumble, and Entropy tonight. If you guys want to send any donations or steer the conversation in any way with some donations, feel free to do that on Rumble or Entropy. I believe I have the Entropy chat pinned on the top of YouTube, so you could use that link there if you want. Seems like it's working there. I see Diagoyim over there throwing some slashes. You love to see it. On Rumble, we have Favorite Karen. Good to see you. And on YouTube, we have a bunch of people there. Johnny Rodden, it was great to meet you this weekend. Kyle Erickson, Ree Hayes, Druidus, Kabooble, Jordan Matt, Madame Breezy. Good times. Jason, good to see you all. Kabooble was saying about the song that I played at the beginning, which was Dancing with the Moonlight Night by Genesis. So that's some early Genesis when Peter Gabriel was the singer and Phil Collins was still the drummer, not the singer. And both went on to have great solo careers, but this is probably my favorite iteration of Genesis. An 8-minute long song, fucking epic, and he says, this track is like Supertramp meets Pink Floyd meets Electric Light Orchestra meets Frank Zappa. And I am a huge fan of all of those artists and groups. I love that really creative, but still awesome to listen to. Not too self-indulgent, but, rocks hard and is really creative and unique. I like that kind of music. So all those bands are fucking awesome. Yeah, we got some good topics for you guys tonight. Of course, the Super Bowl happened last weekend, and of course, in perfect timing, there was a shooting during the parade. So we'll look into that and kind of the meta-political narrative surrounding it, the psychology behind it, and what's going on there. David Irving, the British historian, who was once regarded by even the mainstream media as like the dominant World War II historical scholar. He is in failing health right now. There was rumors today that he had died, and that circulated online. But it's not clear whether he has passed or not. But we'll look into a bit of his legacy and how people are reacting to the news of his death, and we'll just investigate that whole topic there. We're going to try to avoid the landmines because, he is a titan of free speech. And he was even thrown in jail for over a year in Austria just for speaking words. And after only briefly visiting there. that they want to go after people like him in any way that they can and shut free speech down and punish, humiliate, and destroy, kill anybody who goes against their narratives, especially with a topic such as Holocaust revisionism. So we'll be looking into that. Pornhub says that, Canada says that they might ban Pornhub, or Pornhub might block itself from Canada if age verification is required. So obviously it's based to ban porn. If you want to argue that with me, feel free to, but that's what I believe, and I think that's a very sound, reasonable take considering the damages that porn does to our society. I don't think that's free speech. I think that's obscenity. And at the same time, even if you want to keep that, come on. There's so much involved with the pornography industry that you should do whatever you can. Like, for example, with alcohol, you have to be, 19 in Canada, 21 in the United States to buy alcohol at all. So yes, there should be at least age verification for websites like Pornhub or any pornography on the internet. However, they're using this common sense thing that should have been implemented originally. They're using that in order to push through stuff like digital ID and even facial recognition, as we'll see. So no good deed can come without a caveat in this new world order that we're seeing here. So we'll be looking into that. We'll be looking at the discrimination against whites, specifically here in Canada, and we'll see what the laws are pertaining to that, and also just free speech in general in Canada and Britain, and how anti-free speech laws were passed in those countries respectively, and how we could maybe do something to push back against this, right? So we'll look into that and other stuff tonight. So I'll just check the chat one more time before we get started, and we'll get right into it. Yeah, people are loving the music choice. You love to see it. All right, let's get right into it. Okay, starting with the Super Bowl shooting. As we know, on February 13th, so last Sunday, the Super Bowl happened, and, whatever. A team wins each year. The guy, the sports ball players throw the ball down the field. Somebody wins. It's one of the biggest ceremonies in American culture each year, right? And millions, billions are put into advertisements all throughout the whole Super Bowl special on TV, right? So millions of dollars were put into ads about Stand Up to Jewish Hate. Yes, this organization called Stand Up to Jewish Hate. Millions and millions, if not close to $100 million worth of ads were put towards this specific concept, Stand Up to Jewish Hate. Meanwhile, that very same day, Gazans were being blown to pieces inside refugee camps where they were told to go in the city of Rafah. So Israelis want to bomb so first off, they want to bomb them. They bomb them, but I think that's ultimately a terror campaign in order to expel them completely out of Gaza. So, pro-Palestinian supporters, they say, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, and that is seen by many people in the media, and even Elon Musk now, apparently, as a call to genocide against Israelis and Jews in Israel. However, it seems that Israeli policy is actually from the river to the sea. That whole area must be free of any Palestinians, or else we'll bomb the shit out of them. So they're all expected to run off to the southern border down to Egypt and they're forcing Egypt or compelling them to take in all these refugees. But, of course, that's going to come with a caveat and a lot of geopolitical negotiating there, right? And do you think that Egypt is just going to take in all these Palestinians? No, they're going to send them all throughout the world. And, of course, the Zionists are helping facilitate that worldwide placement of all the displaced and terrorized Palestinians from the Israeli government that is only enabled and funded by the power of the American regime. So once they come over here and they know that we've been responsible to their displacement and their genocide, I'm sure that's going to go over well, right? But even the Zionists, even people involved with Breitbart, which is an American supposedly right-wing, obviously Zionist media outlet, even they are supporting that the Palestinians get placed elsewhere in the world, including in America. So we have a lot of great things to look forward to in the future, while all the plebs of the world are eating their cheese, watching the Super Bowl, cheering for their favorite team, their favorite African-American balls, football American, basketball Americans, cheering them on, wearing their jerseys, wearing their names on their backs. Meanwhile, this is all happening, and the replacement, the mass migration, it continues. So, you love to see it. And I love this campaign, Stand Up to Jewish Hate. It's funny how it could have two different meanings. And ironically, it's actually what we should be doing. We should be standing up to Jewish hate. So, you know what? I agree with that hashtag. Stand up to Jewish hate. Jewish hate is what is going on worldwide, and especially in the Middle East right now. And we're all going to continue to be victim of it in much worse ways unless we hashtag stand up to Jewish hate. It's probably the oldest hate known on the planet at this point. What is it now? Like 30,000 Palestinians dead since October 7th? And the initial attack from the the Hamas paragliders that shot up a music festival that was supposedly right on the border in a dangerous contested zone. Interesting. Anyways, now it's like 30,000 Palestinians slaughtered. Are they ever going to let it go? So what is it? It's like 30-1 now. And not to mention that the amount of civilian and especially children casualties within that death toll is the ratio and proportions of the Palestinian victims that are innocent are way more than with the Israelis. Oh yeah, and of course the 40 beheaded babies. They pass off all this insane propaganda within the Western media, with even Joe Biden saying it in his official speeches. 40 slaughtered, beheaded babies. Yet completely unproven, completely untrue, which we'll get into more when we look at the life of David Irving. But anyways, let's see what happened after the Super Bowl during the Chiefs. So the Kansas City Chiefs, they won. And introducing the Kansas City Chief Keefs, who committed a shooting during their victory parade. Let's see probably the funniest video about how it went down. I don't want to show people getting killed. There isn't a video of it out there as far as I know. But this is as good as we're going to get right now. Hold on, let me share my screen here. This is from Breaking 911. New video shows moment shooting broke out at Chiefs Super Bowl parade. At least 10 people transported to the hospital. So one innocent person, ended up dead in the crossfire. And we'll see who is the culprit in a moment.
Guys. Something's going on. Something's going on, guys.
Yeah, something is going on, guys. It's a mass shooting. You should know that by now because it's about as American as apple pie. When you hear those sounds and people screaming and running, you need to hit the fucking deck because, yep, it's a happening. Guys, get the fuck out of here, guys. Something is the fuck happening. Yeah. Okay. Well, who is ultimately responsible? We didn't hear much about it. And we'll find out in a second why. So, Kansas City Chiefs mass shooting was just two hood rats having an argument, then wildly shooting at each other. So, 10 people had to get injured, and one innocent person died because two people had a disagreement. Two people, you could hardly call them people. They call them hood rats here. Youths is another good word for this. Strangers, suspects, many such words. Okay, well, let's let our good friend Ann Coulter describe to you who might be responsible for the shooting. Now, I looked up Ann Coulter specifically. I looked up Coulter's Law on Twitter just to find any video explaining the phenomenon that is Coulter's Law. And little did I know that she was actually on the Bill Maher show after the shooting, explaining exactly what had happened, right beside Van Jones, I think that's Van Jones, the fucking hysterical leftist, black agitator, completely mogging him. So, the title of this, or the caption of this video says, Ann Coulter is based and leaves Bill Maher gobsmacked as she calls out woke media live on national TV in respect to recent American shootings. This Kansas City Chiefs parade shooting. Anyways, this is what she said.
We don't know who did this shooting, by the way. The Super Bowl shooting.
We have some idea.
What?
If it were a white man shooting, we'd know.
Well, we don't know. But they haven't.
That's how we know it's not a white man. I can tell you that much.
But you think they're repressing that reporting?
They wouldn't tell us about the transgender woman that shot up the Christian school for what, like a year? San Bernardino out here. Remember the crazy terrorist Muslims? That's when I first noticed, they're not telling us who it is. It's not a white male. The longer they go without telling you, it's not a white male.
Okay, well, for this one, for right now, as of Friday night, February 16th.
We know.
We don't officially know. Okay, you have special powers. But, we don't know who.
She does have, she doesn't really have special powers, unless you consider that special power noticing basic patterns that anybody would have noticed if they weren't completely psychologically manipulated and disempowered throughout their whole lives, right? But just to explain further what Coulter's Law is, she was just simply explaining Coulter's Law, which on Urban Dictionary says, from Ann Coulter, the longer we go without being told the race of the shooters, the less likely it is to be white men. And that's true, because, of course, the media can't wait to blame things on a white man, to say that whites are the problem, and they are so reluctant to give any information about any black shooter or anything that goes against the mainstream media narrative that white supremacy and white men, white privilege is the greatest threat to our so-called democracy. Well, it ain't that democratic if you're just hiding all the information and skewing it, manipulating it at every single instant that you can. So, Coulter's Law in complete effect once again. But there's also another one. There's also another important law that you guys need to be wary about. And I actually see Johnny Rod in the chat. He's saying, ever notice that these hood rats always have shit aim? Well, I think you might be touching on Sailor's Law right now, and I'll tell you what that is in a second. So, Steve Sailor, a journalist at VDare and other websites, check him out on Twitter. He does great work. He says, Sailor's Law of mass shootings appears to be vindicated at the Kansas City Super Bowl parade. If there are more wounded than killed, then the shooter is likely black. If there are more killed than wounded, then the shooter is likely not black. And he goes on to explain that further in his article here, which I've highlighted a few things. So this is over at Tacky Mag, another place where he writes. So, I think you guys could probably guess why that is true. Like Johnny Rodden said, why do these hood rats always have shit aim? Because two hood rats got into a disagreement and they just sprayed at each other. They just sprayed the AK all day. Brap, 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 brap. And they don't even kill each other, which would have been a plus for humanity if they only killed each other and took each other out of the gene pool. But instead, they killed an innocent person and wounded 10 other people. So fantastic, great. Glad your disagreement did so much good for the world there. But anyways, that seems pretty typical for the mass shootings that blacks commit that constitute the majority of mass shootings, by the way. There's a very incorrect, misleading, and downright malicious assertment that white men are the big mass shooters in society, and you got to watch out for them. No, that's not the truth whatsoever. However, there are some caveats, and we'll look into that in this article. So, some of the things I've highlighted about this article where he explains Sailor's Law and some of the statistics and metapolitical analysis behind it. So this is from 2022, but it rings true to this day. So, according to Gun Violence Archive, last year, there weren't just a handful of memorable mass shootings, but 693, almost 2 per day. So back in 2014, there were only 272. So I believe this is 4 or more people being hit by bullets. And that is before the Ferguson effect kicked in. And the Floyd effect, as he calls it, so these are some new terms. The Ferguson effect is after Michael Brown got shot in Ferguson and died because he attacked a cop and lunged at his gun, and then got shot. Because of that, riots went all throughout Missouri and all throughout the United States, probably worldwide even. And then it made it, and then I forget what the cop's name is, Darren something maybe, but he got put on trial and eventually got acquitted of the murder, and even more riots broke out after that. So, either way, police were afraid to actually do their job. Same as after Trayvon Martin got shot, and then especially in 2020 with the George Floyd situation. Now, police are completely on eggshells. Even though George Floyd resisted for so long before he got subdued on the ground and died of a fentanyl overdose. He was eating his fentanyl for 20-30 minutes while they were trying to get him out of his car after he committed a felony. And the media did not show that. They did not prop that out to everybody. So they had given George Floyd all the leeway that he needed. They were being very easy on him until he just wouldn't cooperate. And then they had to put some force on him. And then he died of a fentanyl overdose. And it was blamed on the knee on the neck, old necky knee. It's completely absurd when you really think of it. How do you die from a knee on the back of your neck? Is that going to choke you out? The initial autopsy said otherwise. Go watch Candace Owens' documentary about it. Okay, I don't need to convince you guys for the most part. But of course, The Floyd effect. It drove up the numbers from 417 in 2019 to 611 in 2020, and then 693 in 2021. Wow. Congratulations, black community and mainstream media, enabling this kind of violence. You're really doing wonders for the world. So whether the minimum number of victims counts only the dead or the dead and wounded has a sizable impact on the racial makeup of the enumerated perps. Okay, so what they're saying is all these different studies, they take into account different things like the amount of people injured or the amount of people that actually died from the shooting. So what something like Mother Jones does is they discount all the situations where black people just spray and they wound like 20 different people and maybe only murder 2. So those all get discounted. And then furthermore, the leftists, they'll only count people who are extremely ideologically motivated to the point where they have a manifesto. And even then, they'll still somehow exclude black people or other racial groups from that study in order to just pin mass shootings on white people. So even with that, even when you take into account those factors, white people are still committing less of those mass shootings where they actually kill people, less than their population representation. So per capita, they're still doing less than anybody else. And to explain this even further, and to show the kind of hypocrisy that's going on here, so he writes that during Black Lives Matter mostly peaceful protest, just hours after Obama interrupted his European trip to make a TV speech denouncing policing shootings of 2 black men, this guy, I don't know if you remember this, but I think this was like 2016 or so, but this guy, Mika Xavier Johnson, murdered 5 policemen and wounded 9 others and 2 civilians. This guy, Johnson, Mika Xavier Johnson, had military training, was notably more competent than most mass shooters. The reason he didn't kill more than he wounded is because he chose to take on hard targets, cops who are armored, who are trained for what to do when they got shot at and who shoot back. And then Johnson became perhaps the first human in history to be blown up by a robot. And of course, the media goes on and on about Dylan Roof and mass white shooters like that who committed like terrible atrocities. But he points out that which massacre is more part of the conversation in this decade? Dylan Roof in 2015, who killed 9 and wounded 1, or Mika Johnson in 2016, who killed 5 and wounded 11. And he points out how the New York Times mentioned the name Mika Johnson, or any variation of it, 3 times in this decade, versus Dylan Roof 36 times. And since 2020, the Washington Post has run 8 Dylan Roof articles and 0 about Johnson. Fox News has made 16 references to Roof and none about Johnson. So 60 to 3 references for the white mass shooter versus the black mass shooter in the last few years. And we see what the media is paying attention to at this point. So, if there's any takeaway, I'm sure you guys know about this, and I'm preaching to the choir, but I guess to clarify, for anybody on the fence explaining how the media gets away with this, how they focus your attention on only specific issues, and then completely ignore the other ones, and how it shapes the reality of people. So, Coulter's Law, Sailor's Law, and I'm sure there's many more. The Floyd effect, You know, I think the Floyd effect is when you swallow a bunch of fentanyl, you're going to have a fentanyl overdose. So, I don't know. There's multiple meanings for different words, so. It'll just keep continuing too. Like, I think it's about for every time a white person kills a black, there's 30 black people who kill a white person. On VDare, there's this guy who compiles like each of the interracial black versus white versus black murders each month, and the average each month is about 30-1 for blacks on whites. Yet the media will focus in on the few times that a white kills a black, whether in self-defense, whether maliciously, it doesn't matter. If it's in self-defense, they'll paint it as if it was some racist lynching. Meanwhile, you could have the most heinous, brutal murders of black versus white. They could even say, I hate white people and I want to kill them. And the media will pretend like that wasn't part of the situation, right? That happened in this one place where this guy was tired of these little kids playing basketball outside. And he wasn't even supposed to be living in the house that he was. He like basically took it over, and this insane black guy came out and started open firing at a little 7-year-old girl, hit her in the face. It went through the side of her face, and it went through... No, sorry. The father of that little girl came out, and it went through his chest and then grazed the side of his daughter's face as this crazy guy open fired on them, yelling about how he hated white people. Yet, all the mainstream media, they took out all the testimony of the father saying exactly what this guy was saying. That was his immediate motivation when he came out and open fired on them. And a lot of these hood rats, these thugs, these youths, they're very inarticulate. So I don't even think it matters whether or not they had these motivations that they want to hurt white people or not. They see them as targets in many instances. They see Asians as targets. That's why all this hashtag Stop Asian Hate stuff happened, because they get attacked. If you look at people who are attacking Asian people randomly, it's like 90+% all black people. Yet they won't even touch that. So that's where we're at with that. And, you know, it'll just keep on happening. Way of the World says it pretty good on Twitter. There was another one recently. Minnesota gunman kills 2 cops and a paramedic who try to help them during a standoff. So, crazy guy, known for domestics. He's holding his family hostage. These people try to help him, and then he goes out and starts like open firing on them. And Way of the World says it well. When you have high concentrations of blacks in an area, civilization cannot survive there. I'm sure some kind of civilization can, but not to the standards that we would hope to live up to, right? Especially as a Western society. He says, we're already seeing the emergence of food deserts due to relentless theft from supermarkets, right? So why are all the supermarkets leaving Detroit? And the closing down of other stores for the same reason. Yeah. Now, even the emergency services fear for their lives if they dare to go into certain places. Well, we already know that cops won't go into certain places, and we can see why here, right? No-go zones. Well, there's going to be more of that, especially if we fail to recognize what the actual issue is. But, you know what? Fuck that. We need to just keep on simping for, you know, the high IQ, real creators of civilization. You know, we all came out of Africa initially, right? That's how we all evolved. And we stole all of their inventions, and we just need to give them back. We need to give them trillions of dollars in reparations. And we need to let these scholars and rocket scientists flourish. We need to stop oppressing them, and we need to let them flourish. So I'm going to take a little break here, and I'm going to introduce you to some of my homies that I want you to give. I know you're giving your tax money to them already, but I want you to reach into your pockets and maybe give like another 10-15% of your paycheck to these oppressed scholars that you're about to see here. So we'll be right back. Enjoy. Whole lot of dick sucking shit going on in here. So we'll be right back.
Yo, what's up, man? Come try that.
Out here deep in here, no cap.
What's good? Who we here with? Who we here with?
Oh yeah, y'all need to see it.
Come get in this shit,
Hey,
bro.
get what though? Just beat that baby, twin.
Yeah, we out here. Where you at?
What's good? What's good? Who we here with, Bido?
Track cap shit, track cap shit, yeah.
Slatty, yeah, baby Scuttle.
What's good? What's good?
To be stick, baby.
Hell yeah.
We had this all day like this, man.
Oh, I got
Baby out rat.
We got the Army Green guy there.
Murder Mountain, nigga. This shit, Murder Mountain for real. Get your ass murdered out these motherfuckers.
To the murder mount. Oh, they go. What's up, Twain?
Come on in.
Yeah, and we got G, Crew, and Bloods out there, motherfuckers.
My boy come
Any gang, yeah, come out here playing, your head getting fold. Yeah, getting blister pop.
Yeah, my boy coming to get some time from the real one. You hear me?
Every gang got these motherfuckers. You play with this shit. Spin back to back. Got some block shit going on, man. Trap camp shit, man. We got a whole bunch of all this shit. Nigga, come out here, get your ass murdered.
Whole lot of dick sucking shit over here.
This shit really like that, yeah. No this
Niggas talking about this shit really like that.
the biggest blunts. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, well, I just left my bed. That's why I just left my bed.
Yo, we really out here, man. We in these streets for real. East side, y'all see what time it is out here, man.
Really
For real.
pulling up for real.
East side, yeah. Miko Worldwide, we out here, man. For real.
Pulling up for real.
And we having truck house and Hemis and all that. You hear me? Jeeps, all that.
I walked in over there next time.
Yeah, this good.
Stone my name, man. Pull up, heat what you gotta get.
Yeah.
Pull up and get it and go.
Get it and go. One way shot.
Go, yeah. No cap.
One way shot. Get anything you need.
He seen little bro. He seen bro. He like, oh, that's nigga from the. Oh yeah, what the hell? Like, what the hell? Look.
We out here, man.
Yeah, my boy pulling up to the hood, man. Real murder mound, no cap. The real one.
Why y'all nigga ain't gonna
I
come?
wish they could have got him on the block.
Salute my boy.
12
on the block right now, boy. You like, hey, we can go to that block.
I understood nothing there. I think that this is probably some kind of advanced Nubian language that our small white brains are just too dumb to comprehend. But my favorite part of this was, where was it? Whole lot of dick sucking shit.
Come out here.
Yeah, brap, brap, brap. He's
Trap
toting
camp
the
shit,
guy.
man. We got a whole bunch of all this shit. Nigga, come out here, get your ass murdered.
Whole lot of dick sucking shit over here.
This shit really like that, yeah. No cap.
Shit really like that. They really be do a whole lot of dick sucking shit out here, my nigga. Shit. Oh my goodness. We need to go over there and give these people scholarships. 100%. Oh my lord. What are y'all people saying in the chat? We're about to get into another topic here. Yeah. Wakanda truly is beautiful. All right, let's get into the David Irving stuff. Here, let me just let my video card load my browsers here. I'll be able to start this any second. Yeah, so there's been some recent news. Now, I found out yesterday that David Irving is in fact in ill health, and he has been for a long time now, since about October. And if you don't know who David Irving is, he's a British historian, was known even by the mainstream media as like top 3, if not the top World War II historian. But, you know, he kept on looking at all the original sources and would not accept any of the more mythical narratives that did not actually have sources that could be verified to back them up. You know, a lot of it is what he refused to acknowledge, more so than what he actually said. But either way, when you have somebody like David Irving who has that kind of integrity and won't back down, they will come after you. So, eventually, his impeccable reputation turned into that of one in which they would call disgraced. So, I'm going to throw up Wikipedia just to see what they're saying about him there. David Irving is an English author who has written on the military and political history of World War II, especially Nazi Germany. He was found to be a Holocaust denier in a UK court in 2000 as a result of a failed libel case. So it's not as bad as some other people's Wikipedia pages, but goddamn, is his Wikipedia page not very long. So there's a lot of information to be digested when you're dealing with someone like David Irving. But I have found a good article about him, one that I had read a while ago from one of my favorite writers. He's a Jewish businessman, philanthropist, and political commentator named Ron Unz. He has a website called The Unz Reviewed, where he holds a lot of controversial political commentators, and he lets them publish there. So, just to clarify, though, there was news of his death. I'm still not certain whether he is just in very failing health or he has died. And there are a lot of leftists online who are making jokes denying his death because, you know, he's supposedly a Holocaust denier. So then they deny that he's dying, so it becomes a huge clusterfuck. Now, one right-wing news outlet reported that he died, and then people went on with that, and then somebody who, was purported to be his wife or his daughter claimed that he is still alive but in failing health on the website that he uses, like as a commenter, though. So we don't know if it's someone who just went in and like use that name in order to trick people, or, you know, what's actually going on with that. But anyways, I have something highlighted from this outstanding article about David Irving. It's called The Remarkable Historiography of David Irving by Ron Unz. This is from 2018, but it's still very relevant today. And it's going to bypass the specifics of supposed Holocaust denial because, of course, that is now illegal in Canada. And we might get into that a bit later about how that they try to make it illegal back in the 1980s here in Canada, but there was a monumental court case that had international implications about free speech, with Ernst Zundel being on trial for a supposed Holocaust denial, and he actually won and beat it with a crazy trial that included many different experts from both sides of the fields, like some from both sides of the argument. But anyways, just read a few things from this article to give you some further context beforehand. So, about David Irving, with many millions of books in print, including a string of bestsellers translated into numerous languages, it's quite possible that the 80-year-old Irving, he's now 85, today ranks as the most internationally successful British historian of the last 100 years. Irving is an individual of uncommonly strong scholarly integrity, and as such, he is unable to see things in the record that do not exist. even if it were in his considerable interest to do so, nor to fabricate non-existent evidence. Therefore, his unwillingness to dissemble or pay lip service to various widely worshipped cultural totems eventually provoked an outpouring of vilification by a swarm of ideological fanatics drawn from a particular ethnic persuasion. So you could probably imagine what that particular ethnic persuasion is. The zealous ethnic activists began a coordinated campaign to pressure Irving's prestigious publishers into dropping his books, while also disrupting his frequent international speaking tours and even lobbying countries to bar him from entry. It's pretty commonplace now, but back in his day, for that to happen, it was, they were really setting a precedent there with him. He is really like a pioneer, someone who really stood at the front lines early on. And in popular culture, this battle between him and a Holocaust historian, Deborah Lipstadt, it actually became a movie called Denial, and we'll get into that in a second. But just some context for that beforehand. In 1993, Deborah Lipstadt, a rather ignorant and fanatic professor of theology in Holocaust studies, or perhaps Holocaust theology, ferociously attacked him in her book as being a Holocaust denier, leading Irving's publisher to suddenly cancel the contract for his major new historical volume. This development eventually sparked a lawsuit in 1998, which resulted in this huge 2000 libel trial held in a British court. So David Irving sued her because she kept publishing all this shit about him, saying that he's a Holocaust denier, Nazi, all this stuff. And then that got him canceled by his publisher because she used international Jewish power and influence to cancel him, to ruin his livelihood, to stop him from spreading his message. So, yes, he sued her. And, of course, the movie they made about it made her seem like the victim and him seem like some crazy aggressor, when really it was the other way around, right? The classical inversion. Unz goes on to write, the legal battle was certainly a David and Goliath affair, with wealthy Jewish movie producers and corporate executives providing a huge war chest of $13 million to Lipstadt's side, allowing her to fund a veritable army of 40 researchers and legal experts, captained by one of Britain's most successful Jewish divorce lawyers. By contrast, Irving, being a historian, was forced to defend himself without benefit of legal counsel. And I want to add something there. I actually saw a video on Twitter where Deborah Lipstadt admits that when she told people that she was going to go against David Irving, that someone connected her with none other than Les Wexner. This is the Jewish multi-billionaire who is the founder or CEO of Victoria's Secret, Bath & Beyond, and other companies, who's part of the super Jewish group, the super group of Jews who, collude together to make sure Zionist issues and power are on top. But also Les Wexner, the guy who gave Jeffrey Epstein all of his money. Jeffrey Epstein is a billionaire himself, or multi-billionaire himself, because he was handling and given all that money by Les Wexner in order to entrap politicians, celebrities, and others with underage blackmail pedophile schemes. That's what the Epstein scandal was about, and that's what they don't want you to look for. That's what they don't want you to look into and find out, that Mossad, Jewish groups like Mega Group, were the ones who were using Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, in order to entrap all these politicians, in order to force them to have pro-Zionist policies. So Deborah Lipstadt is getting money from literal fucking, not only just pedophiles, but the biggest pedophiles in human history, basically. The people who enabled pedophilia on such a mass scale to use to politically target people as well, while ruining the lives of children worldwide. This is who Deborah Lipstadt is in bed with. And that is the Goliath of the world. And as he says here, in real life, unlike in fable, the Goliaths in this world are almost invariably triumphant. And this case was no exception, with Irving being driven into personal bankruptcy, resulting in the loss of his fine central London home. But seen from the longer perspective of history, I think the victory of his tormentors was a remarkably Pyrrhic one. And that means that, it's a victory that betrays the victor, because they are delving into a world full of lies, full of ruining people's lives because they were enacting their free speech. And that's going to turn on them. It's going to turn on them eventually. It's not going to do them it'll do them favors now. But throughout the course of history, I think that ultimately the truth will prevail. The truth usually doesn't prevail in the beginning, but it has a way of bubbling up to the surface. And especially when the deceivers, the liars, are involved with pedophiles and billionaire pedophiles, part of Mega Group, and even the Canada connection of Mega Group. Who is it again? The Bronfmans, behind organized crime throughout the Prohibition era. And, there's members of the Bronfman family who are part of pedophile cults. And they're even in jail for it now. Right? But these are the people that she's in bed with. Les Wexner. That kind of thing has a way of turning on itself. People end up hanging themselves in jail because of these kinds of things. Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, I don't know if he hung himself, but the Goliaths of the world do often win, but that victory is short-lived, and especially in the whole cosmic, in the whole world of good and evil and cosmic justice, they will be burning in hell for the things that they're doing. So he goes on to say about the trial that although the target of their unleashed hatred was Irving's alleged Holocaust denial, as near as I could tell, that particular topic was almost entirely absent from all of Irving's dozens of books, and exactly that very silence was what had provoked their outrage. Therefore, lacking such a clear target, their lavishly funded corps of researchers and fact-checkers instead spent a year or more apparently performing a line-by-line and footnote-by-footnote review of everything Irving had ever published, seeking to locate every historical error that could possibly cast him in a bad professional light. With almost limitless money and manpower, they even utilized the process of legal discovery to subpoena and read thousands of pages in his own diaries and correspondence, thereby hoping to find some evidence of his wicked thoughts. Denial, a 2016 Hollywood film co-written by Lipstadt, may provide a reasonable outline of the sequence of events as seen from her perspective. Okay, so there's a lot there. For one, yes, they did subpoena his diary, and they saw that he made like a little poem where he mentioned like a darky or something like that, like in a little like limerick or rhyme. So they used that out of like thousands of pages of his own personal diary to say, hey, look, he's actually a racist. So his like tens of thousands of pages of historical documentation, that's all doesn't matter because he's actually like a racist. So that was his intentions, to mislead everybody. And then they picked apart anything that they could line by line to find just like the slightest of inaccuracies. And that's why it took them $13 million in different researchers in order to be able to do something like this. Well, the Chad David Irving just stands there by himself and argues his case. Literally the David in the Goliath situation. And as I was saying here, this Denial movie, I kind of want to show you the trailer in a second. But just to show you an example of Hollywood misrepresentations of reality, this made me laugh because actually our good friend Jeremy Mackenzie, I remember they wrote in an article, one of the early articles they wrote about him, he said that they made David Irving look extremely ugly, and then Deborah Lipstadt, who is extremely ugly, they made her look way better looking than she was in the movie. So I made this little graph here that's part of the thumbnail: fiction versus reality. So on the top left, you have Rachel Weisz, the actress that played Deborah Lipstadt at the time. So Deborah Lipstadt is like 45, 50 at the time in 2000 when she went through this trial. But they used this actress in order to represent her when this is what she actually looked like at the time. Yeah, this is the face of a woman who looks like she's been mauled by pit bulls in her life. Not exactly a looker. And they made her much, much younger. And, of course, the movie is full of, like, ridiculousness where it's just like, I'm just the victim of this insane man, and he's just so outrageous and attacking me, and this is the guy that they used to play David Irving, probably about the ugliest actor in Hollywood that I've ever seen. Timothy Spall. He has like an inverted chin and like a sagging face. And David Irving wasn't that much older than she was at the time. So I don't know why they make her look like that and then him look like this. I've literally never seen this actor before, Timothy Spall. They must really only pull him out when they want, like, when the casting call says that we need the ugliest person that we could possibly find to be some degenerate villain. Some old degenerate villain, and that's who they cast in this movie here. But in reality, this is what David Irving actually looked like at the time. Chad jawline, looks like he has like a square head, like some quarterback or defense linebacker for a football team. Meanwhile, this is what Deborah Lipstadt looked like. So of course they write up Jeremy for stating out this obvious fact on how Hollywood, run by a certain ethnic persuasion, how they portray people and how they try to manipulate your reality. As such, with movies like Schindler's List, which they also called him and many others out for saying that, indeed, that movie did not actually happen. It's based on a book that is loosely based on something that happened in World War II. All the main scenes that show the brutality, they're not based at, like, for example, one of the SS officers sniping down Jewish people randomly from the top of the building. Is there any evidence that actually happened? No, but this movie, it wants you to think that this is all true because they based it on something that is based on something that kind of happened, right? And then from there, it's just Hollywood magic. In fact, there was one guy in Canada who actually got charged criminally in the 1990s. His name was Doug Collins. He was a journalist, and he stated, or his article was called Swindler's List. And he actually won. He defeated and was declared not guilty this charge, but that usually doesn't happen, and that certainly isn't going to happen nowadays, unless we could fight this kind of overreach and censorship and attack on free speech, unless we have a way to fight this correctly. And guess who was at the front lines of this battle back then, even? Canadian Jewish Congress official Bernie Farber castigated the Collins column as Holocaust denial and anti-Semitic hate speech. Such writing, he declared, should never be tolerated in free and democratic society. Now, if that isn't an irony right now, if that isn't an irony right there, this speech should not be tolerated in a free and democratic society. Well, I think you kind of contradicted yourself there, because it's no longer free or democratic if you're snuffing out and not tolerating people's opinions. And what was his huge crime that he committed? He wrote a column in 1994 called Hollywood Propaganda, which he reviewed to Schindler's List as Swindler's List, and called it hate literature in the form of films. He also wrote that Jewish influence is the most powerful in Hollywood, and dismissed the fable 6 million Holocaust figure as nonsense. Now, once again, I'm just reading this article here. But there you have it. That gives a Canadian context to it. Well, let me show you the trailer to this film. I've actually seen it a couple times, and like, I'm a lot more savvy of the propaganda that is portrayed in this film because I've seen it a couple times now, and I have a greater historical context about it. Very interesting movie. I would recommend watching it and then looking at some alternative media in order to get a better reading on it.
I say to you quite tastelessly that more women died on the back seat of Senator Edward Kennedy's car at Chappaquiddick than ever died in a gas chamber at Auschwitz.
It is my pleasure to introduce Professor Deborah Lipstadt. Whatever the reasons that people become deniers, they often have an agenda which they won't admit to.
Why do you continually denigrate the work of David Irving?
You can have opinions about the Holocaust, but I won't meet with anyone that people become deniers. They often have an agenda which they won't admit to.
So that right there, they have an agenda that they won't admit to. So they're going to try to convict you of thought crimes, like they did with David Irving, by subpoenaing his diary and using that against him. They even showed that in the movie, as if that is a credible way to discredit his scholarship.
Why do you continually denigrate the work of David Irving?
You can have opinions about the Holocaust, but I won't meet with anyone who says the Holocaust didn't happen.
Professor Lipstadt, I am that David Irving. And I've got $1,000 to give anyone who can show me a document that proves the Holocaust.
I will not debate you, not here, not now, not
Because
ever.
you can't. Well,
Irving's just sent us notice of a suit to be filed in the High Court.
Miss Lipstadt has done very real damage to my professional existence.
What did you say about him? I think I called him a liar and a falsifier of history.
You better get yourself lawyered up.
A man accuses you of something and it's your job to prove he's wrong? In the U.S., there's a presumption of innocence.
Yeah, not in the UK.
This case is happening to you, but it's not about you.
Auschwitz is at the very center of Holocaust belief, so it's at the very center of Holocaust denial.
There were no gas chambers anywhere at Auschwitz.
Here is one of the largest killing machines in human history.
We know what it is, it's how we prove what it is.
What if we lose? Suddenly it becomes acceptable to say the Holocaust didn't happen?
The word denier is particularly evil.
Well, freedom of speech means you can say whatever you want.
The phrase is a poison to which there is no antidote.
What you can't do is lie and expect not to be accountable for it.
There are no.
Accountable as in they'll ruin your life entirely and not allow you to have any sort of livelihood, and if they can, they'll put you in jail, and then they'll laugh at your death, as a lot of people are doing at David Irving. They'll write in the media that it's good that he's dead.
Holes in that roof, therefore there never
So that's free speech for you, right?
were any gas chambers.
No holes, no Holocaust. He wanted a catchy phrase. He's got it.
Where's the evidence? Where's the proof?
Not all opinions are equal.
But I'm not a racist.
The earth is round, the ice caps are melting, and
Elvis, it's not a lie. I'm not attacking freedom of speech.
I've been defending my right to stand up against someone who wants to pervert the truth.
So there you have it. The movie Denial, co-written by Deborah Lipstadt too, who we were just going over, and it's an excellent example of propaganda in Hollywood. So it is a good watch for you to look with a skeptical eye, and then use sources from both the pro and against side of this film, and decide for yourself, right? I heard about this yesterday, that he was in ill health. His family is asking for funds as he has been bedridden since about October, I believe. But if you look at his comments here, it's filled with tons of support on Twitter here, but then also a lot of people celebrating his death. It seems like it's been flooded by both leftists, probably cuck-conservatives who think he's an evil Nazi as well, and based lads from the dissident right. Right? Fantastic news. Thanks for the update. So, It just goes on and on. Very contentious topic. On and on. You know, it seems like a lot of people, a lot of Hasbro trolls came out of the woodwork for this. They must get extra points on their Israeli activism apps that they do. To write a nasty comment about somebody's death or ill health. There's one more thing I wanted to read from this article. It's just basically about how David Irving, he spent over a year in jail because he went to Austria in order to give a lecture at a university. And then they said that 16 years earlier, on a previous visit to that country, he had said something that was illegal there now. So the police, they put him at gunpoint. They put him into jail. He had no communication with his family. They didn't know what happened to him. More than 6 weeks passed before he was allowed to communicate with either his wife or a lawyer. And then eventually, he was given a 3-year prison sentence? Damn. Okay, so he ended up getting out after 400 days of incarceration, almost entirely in solitary confinement, before he got back to Britain. Now, wow, is that not free speech or what? Free speech doesn't mean freedom from consequences. Like what, spending 400 days in jail in solitary confinement? Do not ever let these people get away with gaslighting you about free speech and whether you have it or not, because we don't. And yes, this article is very good. Just type in the remarkable historiography of David Irving, Un's review, and you'll find it. You can see all the boomer bots, or Hasbara bots. I don't know whether they're boomer bots or Hasbara trolls on the Daily Mail. So they're also gloating about his death. This is one of the only articles that talks about how he's in ill health. And they make fun of him, kind of, in a roundabout way, saying that he's begging for money as he's dying. And then in the comments here, after you get through the hundreds of ads, I have ad blocker on here, by the way, but on Daily Mail, they're so they have so much integrity that they need this many ads on their on their platform. It just keeps on going, man. So I finally get to the comments, and it's full of who even are these people? It seems like a lot of them are from the UK. Oh, this one's from Israel. I am sure the Hamas leaders in Qatar would be happy to help them. Rot in hell. He's a dangerous person, or was. Delusional. Oh, this is my favorite. Irving isn't ill at all. He's not in a hospital. He's in a hotel having the time of his life. You know, I hope he reads this and understands how stupid he is. And it goes on and on. Do any of these people know any of his arguments or the reputation that preceded him before he became supposedly disgraced? Well, I'm sure that these comments are highly curated, or they have the dumbest of the dumb of British boomers. But either way, this just goes. This is just a testament to the fact. I think Sam Hyde says, they want you dead. They want you raped. Your fail. What was Sam Hyde's quote? Let me just look it up. Sam Hyde. Dead. Yeah. Do not forget that these people want you broke, dead, your kids raped and brainwashed, and they think it's funny. And that's true. You saw there. They're laughing at him dying. They hope he rots in hell. You know, they don't know anything about him besides what they're told. They want him broke. They certainly want him broke, and they made him broke. He's barely hanging on. And think about all the people who don't have the notoriety and the support that he has, who they have made broke, who they have driven to suicide, who they've even killed. You know, their kids getting raped by, you know, the replacements, the people that they lobby to bring into the country, that have to actually live with the new residents of their country, that a lot of the policymakers, they don't have to live in those areas because they have the money. No. It's other places that are other people that are less well off that have to get their kids raped. And of course, they're brainwashing everybody. So the statement from Sam Hyde couldn't be more true. You know, that's kind of blackpilling, but like I said, at the end of the day, their lies can't go on forever. The truth has a way of bubbling to the surface. And at the very least, like, you have to have a debate on these issues. You can't just push people out of society. That's not going to work. That's only going to raise the appetite for people to see, like, an actual debate about these issues, and not just name-calling, not just trying to ruin people's lives. You can make all the laws you want, throw people in jail. At the end of the day, you're going to have to show your receipts. You're going to have to put it all on the table. And if that if that upsets you too much, and, you know, you're so triggered that you need a law against it, you're only making yourself look bad. Alright, so that's about it for that topic. I want to get on to another one. Apparently, Pornhub may be blocked in Canada, which is great news, I think. However, it, of course, comes with a caveat. Like, they're not just doing it because they want to get rid of degeneracy. No, they, like, the powers that be obviously want more of that. And I think Lee Stewie, in one of her posts, has put it out very succinctly. I'll just share that briefly. She says, I agree with the sentiment to ban porn. However, this has nothing to do with the Canadian government concerned about minors and sex trafficking in porn, and has everything to do with introducing a digital ID that includes facial recognition to access it. Don't be fooled. And yeah, she highlights here, so the legislation doesn't specify how sites should verify a user's age, but options include the establishment of a digital ID system or services that can estimate an individual's age based on a visual scan of their face. Now that's pretty fucking crazy. But, you know, pretty par for the course at this point, right? Like, I could imagine maybe they wanted to see your ID, so you'd show a picture of it, and then you'd be allowed on that site from now on. Which, even then, if you're doing that for porn, you've got a problem. If you need to access porn that badly, that you're willing to put... Okay, there was a commenter on Telegram that that put it very well as well as Stewie did. Added some extra context. Sandy on my Telegram chat said, it's actually a genius way to get people to accept mandatory digital IDs for everything. Most men in this country are addicted to porn. They can't go a day without touching themselves while watching another man's penis go into a woman who isn't their wife. So if people concede to allowing their faces to be scanned before accessing anal gangbang porn online, do you think they will ever oppose digital IDs for anything else? I can already picture people saying, I already scanned my face before accessing barely legal double penetration cream pie videos online. What's the big deal if I need to do it at a grocery store or pharmacy or before buying my sports ball tickets? I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself there. They go on to say, you really think that liberals, the biggest child groomers in history, the people who are trying to make sure every daycare in Canada has regular drag queen events where pedophiles in lipstick and high heels force your children to sit on their cocks while reading them stories about penguins with two daddies? You think they really give a fuck if children are accessing porn online? And no, I don't think that they give a fuck. I really don't. I think this is part of, they're closing the gap between the left and the right, and they're using concerns like the fact that porn is an issue and something that probably should have been implemented a long time ago, age verification, just like you need age verification to buy alcohol or to vote or to go to fucking war and get your head blown off for Israel. Maybe you should do that before you get involved in one of the most degenerate, harmful things in our society. But I know that the liberals obviously don't care, and the conservatives, the conservatives, obviously don't care about it either. But it's a way to kind of close the gap between the left and the right and get them all on board with digital ID. Stuff like facial recognition, to streamline that. They even say here, the bill outlines a range of concerns about minors having access to sexually explicit material, including the potential to develop a pornography addiction. So it is addictive, at least they're admitting that, and the reinforcement of harmful gender stereotypes. So, of course, they have to add in woke social justice warrior language here. Harmful gender stereotypes. So some girl will watch it thinking that she's not some airbrushed, busty fucking plastic surgery whore, that, she's not living up to being a woman. Isn't it the same woke politics that says that that's empowered? Of course they couch it in that language. What about the fact that it's degrading, it's morally wrong, and also there's all this pedophilia, fucking human trafficking, all these different things involved. That the fact that a lot of porn is bordering on obscenity, where they're just pushing the limits. And if children or young teens, even young adults, were to reenact this in their normal lives, they're going to cause a lot of damage. So yeah, it is. I guess that is harmful gender stereotypes in some capacity, but yeah, you know how they phrase things here. Oh, this is interesting too. In 2023, his firm, so his is referring to none other than, where is he here? Solomon Friedman, I'll just say it. Rabbi Solomon Friedman, who his company, he owns the company that owns Pornhub, and he lives in Canada. Solomon Friedman, a rabbi, owns Pornhub and is speaking on its behalf. So in 2023, Solomon Friedman's firm acquired ownership of Pornhub's parent company, as it was reeling from reports that exploded in late 2020 about the site being home to countless examples of child sex abuse material and other images and video uploaded without an individual's consent. So, revenge pornography, or just totally, I don't know what else you would call that, but it's fucked up. But of course, this holy man, this spiritual man, this rabbi, when he sees a company that's doing something like that, he goes in and he goes, "Not on my watch. I'll do it properly, and I'll also protect them from all these legal ramifications." Wow, what a benevolent person. What a spiritual holy man. So this has happened, like, bills to introduce age verification. It happened in Louisiana. And after that, you need a government ID, which I think is a good way to approach it. You have government ID, you need it to buy Bitcoin and stuff. You use that to access Pornhub. And that made Pornhub take a nosedive. So they got way less traffic in Louisiana. Seems like that stamped out the problem there. I don't think you need a digital ID or facial recognition. And just imagine, like, the poor Coomer that does something like that, and that the database that you're going to be stored in, and how that could be used as blackmail against you. You can get extorted from that. Well, don't play those games if you don't want that to happen, right? But also in Utah, a similar bill passed, and it didn't include the same option, so Pornhub just blocked access to the state altogether. So I'd say Utah got off very easy there. That's good. So this is interesting. It says responsibility for the online harms legislation. So I think this is part of a greater debate about online harms. Now, there was a bill that got introduced, I think, in 2021 called the Online Harms Act or something. And it was so ridiculous that it got scrapped. And they had to rename it the Online Safety Act. And they had all these workshops about it. But they combined things like child pornography and sexual exploitation online. And they mixed that with so-called hate and terrorist content. And this Online Safety Act is combining all of that into one thing. And there was all these workshops where they have these experts, including one of them, Anti-Hate's chairman or former chairman, who's now like the emeritus chair. He is part of those workshops where, you know, this guy who's screaming on CBC about how the Freedom Convoy of 2022 was the biggest display of neo-Nazism he's ever seen in his life. In his 70 years of life, it's the biggest one he's ever seen. Right. Well, he is part of the workshop where they're designing this legislation for how they're going to take down this content online and report it to authorities. They say, while we propose our own made-in-Canada approach to online safety, we've been able to look at the European Union's example with their Digital Services Act, the UK's Online Safety Act, as well as Australia. Right? We can all agree that what happens online doesn't stay online, and our government is committed to ensuring that social media platforms are safer for our children and for all Canadians. Now, they take one thing and they're going to use this to get rid of your free speech on things that actually matter, like political issues. So there you have it. No good deed can go unpunished. Okay, so I have a few more topics that I want to get into tonight. We've been going for about an hour and a half now. I'm going to play you guys a bit of a song, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to get into those. And, yeah. See you guys in a second. Here, how about Paranoid by Black Sabbath? All right, and we're back. And I want to get into some content about how whites are being discriminated against in Canada. And now we have an article from the Ottawa Citizen. I know a lot of you have probably seen this already, but they very blatantly say, yes, this is legal and we can do it. We can discriminate specifically against white people in job opportunities, and here's how we can do it. So we're going to be looking at that in a second. I'm just waiting for my tabs here to load so I could read the super chats here. I got to work on getting a better video card here. This isn't working very well. But I got a super chat on Rumble from Uncle Kenny saying flat earth. Well, I appreciate the super chat. I don't know what you mean by that. Well, I know that they use flat earth as like a supposed ridiculous conspiracy in order to, demean and delegitimize other conspiracy theories, so-called, that they don't like. But, 100%. People are talking about edging in the Rumble chat. What the hell does that mean? Good to see ya, Octomom. What are you guys saying? Burn Slot says, edging is the practice of engaging in sexual stimulation to the point of ejaculation before stopping and starting again. It can be performed alone or with others and aims to extend or intensify sexual enjoyment. Edging involves cycle of stimulation that can lead some people to a more intense orgasm. Well, thank you for that explanation of edging. I do feel like that's what I do here on this program. Not in a sexually degenerate manner. I'm not gooning. Gooning is another word like that. This isn't a goon sesh. It's an ideological goon sesh or edging session where I take you right to the edge of where you need to go, and then I go, okay, now go or do what has to be done. I take it right to the edge, right before I'm about to go to jail, but then I give you all the ammo that you need to start firing, okay? I load one up in the chamber for you, and then, it's up for you to burst. Now they're going to use that to say that I'm, subtly encouraging violence or something. No, I'm talking about edging your dick, okay? Fuck. Feds are always on my Edgy D. I'm just waiting for Entropy to load up so I can see what's going on there. Take It to the Limit by the Eagles. Yeah, it's a good song. Alright, yeah, let's get into the next topic. Okay, and now my notes aren't loading. Alright. The Ottawa Citizen says, can job postings in Canada exclude white people? Short answer, yes, go fuck yourself. So, yes, it is true. You can be openly discriminated against. I saw that Jeremy posted this, and, he had some good commentary on it. But this was in regard to a job posting for a Canada Research Chair. Apparently, there's only a couple thousand of them in Canada. It's a very prestigious position. You have to be to become a tenured professor, essentially. But they're saying that you have to it only qualifies to individuals who self-identify as women, transgender, gender fluid, non-binary, or two-spirit. So, okay, anything but a man who's not any of those things. Okay. And another position for computer science, because this is so relevant. So that was for an expert of artificial intelligence. So for an expert of computer science, you have to basically be not white. So, qualified individuals who self-identify as a member of a racialized minority. So, they have all these different words that always add up to being you're anybody but white. We want to discriminate against white people, so we use all these fancy terms like BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, underserved communities, racialized minorities, equity-deserving communities. There's probably like 10 or 15 different words that all mean the same things, which is let's exclude white people, let's discriminate against them. And anytime someone is trying to pull, the takeaway from that is anytime anybody is trying to pull one over on people like that, say, oh, this is to increase diversity. Tell them, no, this is to exclude white people. When you hear BIPOC, oh, you mean excluding white people? Oh, racialized minority, you mean fuck whitey? Now, this is how you lead the people who are willing to see the light to the water and help them drink out of it, right? So this article tells you how this came about, what the laws are here. So what are the laws around this? The big one is the Employment Equity Act of 1987, brought in by progressive conservative Prime Minister Brian Mulroney. So it's these conservatives, man. They're conserving so much. In fact, they've completely failed to conserve white people not being discriminated against in the workforce. So kudos to Brian Mulroney. So it identified 4 equity-seeking groups, visible minorities, indigenous people, women, and those with disabilities. The act requires federally regulated industries, the public service, banks and airlines, for example, to target these groups to get better representation within the workforce. The federal government also has the Federal Contractors Program created by Mulroney Government Cabinet Order in 1986. This obliges businesses with more than 100 employees doing business worth $1 million with the federal government to work towards more equitable hiring. So basically, any government job and banks and airlines. So a lot of the biggest money makers, and there's probably more than that, yes, they can specifically discriminate against white people explicitly in their job ads. And then any company with over 100 employees that's doing more than $1 million with the federal government, which they're going to be getting grants, they're going to be doing, like, they're going to have contracts with the government if they have more than 100 people, very likely, right? The private and the public sector do overlap like that and intersect. Also, if the government and like the banks and the airlines and different sectors like that are doing that, then it's gonna become the norm, and then the private sector is gonna be forced to do that, or else they face penalties from all these different non-governmental organizations and different special interest groups. They're gonna force that to become the norm. So even then, like they say, oh, so no, all businesses don't have to have equity targets? No, basically they do. With what I just described there. So it goes on to say here, provincial human rights codes vary by province, but they all prevent discrimination in hiring based upon various characteristics such as sex or race. However, businesses, so this is all the ones that aren't covered by what we just covered up there. But then they say, however, businesses may choose to have diversity targets or hire to improve the composition of a company. So improving the composition is less white people. Legally speaking, this would not be considered discrimination. So basically, they could just decide to hire less white people internally. They just couldn't write in the ad. What they have to do is say that they'll give preference to non-white people. So the Charter of Rights and Freedom says, in Section 15, it prohibits discriminations on various grounds, but the next part says, immediately after that, it exempts affirmative action programs from a claim of discrimination. So if you're saying that it's in the name of affirmative action, then you're not discriminating. even though it's fuck whitey once again. So you can't say no blacks, no women's need apply. It's always going to be, prohibited. But seeking to diversify the workforce because of an underrepresentation of individuals within your setting, it's going to be under the exemption for taking active steps to combat discrimination through targeted hires. Okay, then. Well, what about all these Indians who work at Subway in Toronto or many other places in Ontario? You know, they're taking over all the fast food jobs that should be going to white, old-stock Canadian teenagers, you know, if all this mass immigration wasn't happening, and they're getting iced out because Indians want to work with Indians. Can we force them to have diversity hire targets so that they meet the percentage of the population that whites are? So they should have 70% white people working at all these places. Shouldn't they? If we're going to have equity and fairness. But of course, it's fuck whitey once again, right? Get a job ad post for a certain sort of employee. Certainly, if they're an employer covered by the federal equity rules, but it's a bit stickier at the provincial level. Like, what the fuck does that mean? It's a bit stickier at the provincial level. You mean it's a bit harder to get around the rules and you got to use different jargon and language in order to say fuck whitey once again, in order to hire illegals or hire people at a considerably lower rate from different countries that are supposed to be coming in for schoolwork to get diplomas, but instead they're working and taking some diploma mill with a fake degree, meanwhile living like 10, 15 to a house, causing the housing crisis to skyrocket, causing a financial crisis in living. So a posting could be open to everyone, even if there's an internal understanding on the company that the job is, in fact, only going to a woman. So they could just lie to you. They could just lie to you and discriminate against you specifically for being a white male. Wow. Great. This expert says that it's his understanding that you can be explicit in your advertising when it comes to hiring to improve workplace diversity. The basic rule is this: a job ad cannot exclude any person or group unless it's under the federal equity rules. But the posting can say preference will be given to underrepresented groups to advance diversity goals. So that's another one. Underrepresented groups, BIPOCs, the underserved, equity deserving, racialized minorities, racialized peoples. It's all so tiresome, right? And you have to spread the word. You have to spread the propaganda, spread the memes, especially to people in your everyday life. Explain the mindfuckery that's going on and, help them see the truth, because the person you work with, your neighbor, your friends, they could all either have your back when shit hits the fan or not. So you best speak your mind now and try to convert people. Some people aren't worth it, and I understand, but this is why I like to explain these things and delve deep into kind of the linguistics, the metapolitical analysis, because it does give you the tools to explain exactly to the people around you what the fuck they are doing and how to do it in the most convincing way possible. Now, a university professor who I have a good admiration for, Dr. David Haskell. He's done a great job. I've watched several of his presentations where he explains the anti-white discrimination and how toxic identity politics are taking over the universities. They've already taken over. So he's argued that Canada has embraced this false notion that discrimination can be good, and it simply cannot. Now, I don't necessarily agree with him at that, because, we need to discriminate who we let into this country, because that has contributed greatly to where we are now. So he could argue against identity politics in all forms, but at the end of the day, the left is going to use identity politics against white people no matter what. So, like, it's just a losing battle if you don't acknowledge that race is real. And no, I don't think that we should discriminate racially here in our country, like for job opportunities and whatnot. But they're already doing that. And at least for purposes of activism, we do need to come together under these grounds to say, hey, this is anti-white discrimination, and me as a white person am not going to stand for this, and I'm going to stand with other white people or other people who agree with me on this topic, and we're going to stand up against you. You know, that seems to be where the cuck-servatives don't want you to go at all with this. And most cuck-servatives in Canada won't even acknowledge that it's anti-white discrimination. Like, for example, Pierre Poilievre and most others like him will just say that it's woke, identity politics. But at least Dr. David Haskell will say that it's explicitly anti-white, which I have a great respect for. He goes on to say, in general, when immutable characteristics become the bar by which someone is offered a job, well, of course, you're going to have people who are not as qualified. Well, yeah. And the thing that concerns me is, it's suggesting that they could not make it on their own merit. That is the height of racism. This is an incredibly racist policy to say that someone who is a person of color cannot compete on their own competency and merit. Now, that's where I divulge from him, and I say, no, a lot of them can't make it, and that's why they're using this as a crutch. That's why they're using this as their weapon in order to gain power, and that there's people in charge who are helping them, because that makes it easier for them to stay in charge if they're dividing and conquering the people and discriminating explicitly against white people. They're eliminating their competition, especially politically, and then they're putting these other people in charge who are going to be beholden to them, who are going to be obedient to them. So, no, I think a lot of them can't make it on their own competency and merit, and we should probably be helping them in ways where we're not lying to them, for one, and we're not just giving to them things on a silver platter and then prostrating ourselves saying that we're guilty of oppressing them. No, what they need is tough love and the truth. So then probably a lot more will become more competent and they will get more merit in society. But until then, no, they're not going to make it. And, I don't think this is the height of racism, except for he's saying it's the height of racism against them, against these poor minorities. No, it's the height of racism against white people. That's what it is. So just a little correction, but I agree with a lot of what he has to say and appreciate what he's doing. Now, I'm going to give you a little red pill about who got the ball rolling to discriminate against white people in job opportunities and throughout society. This was done originally with the Abella Commission. So, the Abella Commission, officially the Royal Commission on Equality and Employment, was a Canadian federal royal commission headed by Rosalie Abella in 1983 to 84. She was the sole commissioner. She was appointed by the Federal Minister of Employment and Immigration, and then she investigated the employment practices and with particular focus on women, Indigenous people, disabled people, and visible minorities. And she was inquiring into the most efficient, effective, and equitable means of promoting employment opportunities, eliminating systemic discrimination, and assisting all individuals to compete for employment opportunities on an equal basis. And it was the inspiration for what they talked about in that other thing, which was the 1987 Stephen Mulroney policy that allowed anti-white discrimination. And Rosalie Abella, her family was murdered in the Holocaust. Okay, things are starting to make sense a little bit here. Yep. Okay. So because of that, because members of her family were murdered in the Holocaust, that means that white people are barred from jobs now. Okay. Okay. So just to talk more about this online harms bill that's coming, we don't know exactly when it's coming. It's been in the works for a couple of years now, but this is the latest article about it from about 2.5 months ago. Is Ottawa looking at a new agency to fight online harm? And yeah, they're teasing at it. It's going to come soon. They're saying sometime this year. They've already done many workshops about it. They had a lot of people like Bernie Farber who were involved in the workshops talking about how they're going to censor you, how they're going to force social media platforms in order to take down content that a digital commissioner doesn't like. So it has a few different branches that when a post gets reported, it's going to have this whole group of people who are going to probably use the resources that are shared across all these different NGOs that say that me and you are hate mongers. And they're going to use that to say, oh, right away, yes, we don't want this person's hate spreading just because of who they are, and maybe even not what they're saying, but just because who they are. And we think the context of who they are is hateful. They're dangerous. So we got to do whatever we can to fight back against this. And certainly I am doing my best to do my part in that. But it's coming soon. There's one more article I want to show you that teases at it. This is from the Hill Times. I got an archived version of their article because they're behind a paywall. It says, online safety bill in Canada. Time to get on with it already. It's from October 2023. They say, at an October 16th event announcing the new special envoy on Holocaust remembrance and combating anti-Semitism, Justice Minister Irving Verani said the bill was in its final stages of development, though he stopped short of providing a timeline. So they're probably all arguing with each other about, what do you call it? The October 7th stuff, Palestine versus Israel. It's really dusting things up because I'm sure the Jewish censors, they want to make any support for Palestine illegal, or at least make as much of it considered anti-Semitism and potentially illegal, as much of it as possible. But who knows? There's probably a lot of internal struggle there. But we do know that in, I think it was 2022 or 23, they made downplaying or whatever, denying or downplaying or promoting the Holocaust an illegal offense as part of the Hate Speech Act or something like that. So that is a criminal charge now. So certainly they're going to be looking at anything online like that to shut down. And is it explicit or implicit in the so-called denial, right? You got to think of this. Because if I disagree with this law, am I implicitly denying it by saying that it has no merit to it or that you should hear both sides? Is that implicitly downplaying it? There's so many ridiculous ways in which this law is completely unconstitutional, even for the Charter of Canadian Rights and Freedoms, for choices and voices, or whatever Ricky would call it in Trailer Park Boys. But it's just completely an anathema to free speech. It makes absolutely no sense. You should be able to debate anything. And they try to say that it's violence, basically. To have a different opinion about what happened in World War II, that's paramount to violence. That's tantamount to violence. But is that really? Is it really? No, it's not. It means, if you have a belief and you really do believe that, even if you don't believe it and you're just lying about it, is that causing violence? How do they know that it's your intent to cause violence or so-called hate? Then they'll start looking into your intent. And do they think, are they going to look into your hard drives, look into your personal diary, all your online postings, and say that, oh, look, he's racist here. So he intended to hate, even though that's what he actually believes. He was also intending to spew hatred. It's just complete nonsense. It's just a mess. Any intelligent person knows that this is ridiculous. And we could see that happening in cases like in Britain right now. Like with Sam Millia, one of the leaders of Patriotic Alternative, he did a stickering campaign for several years, and he got charged recently, and his sentencing for how long he's going to be in jail for because of this is going to happen soon. But he's already been convicted of like incitement to hatred because he was encouraging people to put stickers that he designed. Put stickers up that say things like, "It's okay to be white." Now, the court acknowledged that none of the stickers said anything that was illegal, but that he intended to stir up racial hatred because when the terrorism police raided his house, they found a picture of Uncle Adolf Hitler. Oh my God. And they found a book about Oswald Mosley in his house too. So just the fact that he had that memorabilia or these objects on him, then that proves that he had intent to hate. Among other things, where they go and they look into all his digital devices and sees messages, and they couldn't find any evidence that he was conspiring with other people to like disturb communities. In fact, they found the opposite of that. They found that he was trying specifically not to stir up like ethnic tensions, but just to inform people about what was going on, how white people were being discriminated against, and how mass immigration was affecting the country. But then they pick and choose whatever they can to suit their narratives and to say that you had this kind of intention, right? So it really is Minority Report. You're getting charged for thought crimes at this point. And we've already been here with at least this Holocaust denial stuff. They slipped in this new law in the budgeting of a bill. So they had a new bill that declared the budget, and within it, they just added a new law without any input from the people, taking away probably the most controversial part of free speech that is most widely contested, and they pushed that through in a budget bill completely undemocratically. Like, it couldn't be more undemocratic to get nobody's vote on it from the rest of the populace and then just sneak it through like this. But this has happened in the past before. In fact, there was a case, R versus Zundel. The decision ended in 1992, but it started sometime in the late 80s, where it was one of the biggest cases in Canada, especially for free speech, even worldwide. So Ernst Zundel, he was promoting Holocaust revisionism. They called it Holocaust denial. And in the 80s, he was charged under some old law they had called the False News Act. And he went to trial, and he fought it. I think he lost at first, but then he had another trial where he fought it, and he won because he appealed, and they said that this False News Act, it contravened a different part of the criminal code. So said that the court reasoned that even lies and false statements are protected forms of expression, and therefore Section 181 infringed Section 2B of the Canadian Charters of Rights and Freedom. So, because this guy spoke what he thought was the truth, and he got all these different witnesses. So, David Irving, as we talked about before, he was part of this trial here. He gave expert testimony, as did many other people, and many other people became notoriously famous, or infamous, you might say, from providing testimony in this trial here. In fact, there's another lawyer who, I forget her name, it's Barbara something. She's deceased now, but she made a document, a PDF, that has all their different testimonies from both sides. So there was like Holocaust historian experts who were on the side of the Crown as well as the side of the prosecutor. And then Ernst Zundel had his own witnesses that testified in order for his innocence, right? So this happened all this time ago, and they waited about 20 to 30 years or so to slip in this law again to take away our free speech. This mattered so much that it took up all this time all this media attention, and now they just slip it through when you least expect it. And that's what they do. That's how they take away your free speech. This is not democratic. This is not by consent. You know, Noam Chomsky talks about manufactured consent. They didn't even manufacture this consent here with propaganda. They just slipped it through. But they've manufactured the consent of the people by, dulling their minds and making them distracted by all these other issues. So they don't even realize that this is happening. And they don't even realize why it's a big deal if they were told about it, right? So Ferryman made a post a week or two ago about British political prisoners right now. And he said that Sam Melia is awaiting sentencing for stickers, like I said. There's one guy who got 8 years because he got raided for something he didn't get charged for, and they found like a PDF on his computer that was a supposed terrorist manual. So 8 years for that. Never mind Omar Khadr, who's helping blow up Canadian military, Canadian and American military personnel, and he gets $10 million because he was mistreated in Guantanamo Bay. This guy gets 8 years for a PDF on his computer. Charlie Big Potatoes, 4.5 years because he shared a Telegram link that had manifestos on it, among hundreds of other different PDFs. And this is on a Telegram channel that has thousands of followers. So, did he even know it was on it? Who knows? And should you get 4.5 years from that? And even, like, the idea that sharing manifestos like that should get you time in jail, it's like anti-hate researchers, they share these manifestos with each other all the time. I think that people maybe should read these to see what these sick people are saying in their manifestos who actually went and killed people. Yeah, you should know what they're saying in them. You should know what is the truth and what is not within them. Like, you should be able to analyze and realize that, some of the things they may be saying are true, while other things, like the need to commit these heinous acts, are despicable. And we should be able to look at that and understand it and realize it. And you shouldn't get 4.5 years in jail for sharing a Telegram link. That's for damn sure. Sven Longshanks, 2.5 years for a podcast. James Costello, 5 years for stickers. Now, I have a good article that I found on the UNS Review once again. Great website, filled with many good journalists, authors. It's called Britain's Hate Speech Trap. Now, this is by Marshall Yeats, but I think it might be the ever-elusive Andrew Joyce, because he's kind of gone missing in the last year or two. People have been worried about him, asking where he is, but people in the comments seem to think this reads like the quality of an Andrew Joyce article, who writes extensively about topics such as the power of a certain ethnic persuasion. But he has here a comprehensive history of hate speech laws in Britain. So it's probably the last thing I'm going to get into before I end it off. But I want to read you some things that he's written about how they slipped through these hate speech laws within Britain and immediately started targeting right-wing, pro-white activists over in Britain. Okay, yeah, sorry, I'm missing one of my highlights here. But what I want to read out is that for years before they finally got a proper hate speech law in Britain, they tried many, many times before, but it kept on not working and got scrapped because, like, the Israelis were committing these war crimes, and every time they lobbied in Britain to get criticism of them shut down, they wanted to specifically make anti-Semitism illegal in Britain. It would get scrapped because the things that they were doing were so horrendous in Israel that, people weren't buying it. So it would get scrapped, and then they had to come back and try again, right? So it wasn't until 1986 or so where they had a Public Order Act, and it was introduced because there was a series of minor strikes and demonstrations, and in those strikes, a lot of, I believe at least 6 or 7 people died. There was a lot of violence, and many more people got injured, and it was just all around chaos. So the government was doing something to try and figure out the situation, so they wanted to stop riots and all this stuff. So they created this Public Order Act. And although the issues of race were not remotely related to the events provoking this white paper, Leon Britansky, and this other guy who supported him, both of Jewish descent, they were in charge with making this legislation to restrict the minors as soon as possible. And sensing that the wide-ranging bill would endure little opposition, they made sure that they added the elements that they wanted into it, such as the criminalization of incitement to racial hatred. So that is the background to why people in Britain are now getting charged with putting up stickers that say it's okay to be white. As he says, it is Britain's clever little addition, which has posed problems for more vocal racial nationalists in Britain today, and has led to the criminal conviction of Samuel Amelia for stickering. And after it became law, John Tyndall, who was the leader of the British National Party, the biggest right-wing party at that time, like actual right-wing party, and he ended up going to 12 months in prison because of it, like a year or two after. And then other people like Nick Griffin went to jail, or barely escaped jail with that law and got charged under it. So it goes on to say the vague wording of the act has allowed the transformations in British culture to carry it to greater extremes without the need for an entirely new law. And there could be little doubt that culture has radically shifted further to the left in the last 20 years. An amendment led to the extension of the maximum sentence from 2 to 7 years. From 2 to 7 years. So at first you could only go to jail for 2 years. Now you could go to jail for 7 years for it, because they just made a little amendment here. Did you even notice? No. They snuck it through in the first place and you didn't notice, so you certainly didn't notice that. And now the results of the sentences are now averaging 3 to 4 years instead of 10 to 12 months. As we saw that with what Ferry posted earlier about British political prisoners. More important, the law has been gradually reinterpreted in the light of new cultural understandings of hate. Hate used to mean that you had to be extreme and quasi-violent feelings of animosity towards a particular individual or group, but now we live in an age where hatred can be something as simple as insisting on the biological basis of gender. So, you don't believe in that men can be women, then you could go to jail too for this, apparently. Or conducting a survey of intelligence or crime alongside racial taxonomies. So, if you believe that, you want to study why white people are getting killed 30 to 1 versus white people killing blacks. Sorry. If you want to understand why blacks in America each month kill whites 30 to 1 versus whites against blacks, then you may be committing a hate crime too in Britain. Hate has moved from being understood as an active and aggressive position against a given entity to being something as banal as adopting a neutral or non-radical position on a sensitive cultural issue treasured by the left. For Mr. Amelia, hate now also encompasses the position that whites as an ethnic group have interests and should defend them. Stickers with slogans like "No White Guilt" are seen as hateful and part of an extreme and dangerous ideology. In such a context, we can insert that Britain has criminalized white self-defense. So he says it very well there. Definitely a good writer here with good historical accuracy and context. I just want to read this last part here. He says, Jewish, Muslim, and other groups hold almost constant meetings with legal and academic experts, police and Crown prosecution services, charities and civil society groups, and numerous individuals with an interest in hate crime laws. So these people all meet together to figure out how they're going to take you down and throw you in jail. Isn't that nice? The hate crime entrepreneurs, that's them, thus play a significant role in determining the assumptions and theoretical underpinnings for the Law Commission's analysis. So they'll teach you how to analyze these situations. And trust me, that is what groups like Anti-Hate and other NGOs like that here in Canada are working towards with this new Online Safety Act, to know how to shut you down online, and then furthermore, how to get you arrested and put in jail. Because like Sam Hyde says, they want you dead, your children raped, they want you thrown in jail, they want you broke. Now, they won't admit it as such, but the effects of their actions are coming out with those results, inevitably. So it says, in other words, it is the activities of these groups, as well as the problematic Jewish-led Public Order Act of 1986 itself, that have led to the current predicament of Samuel Amelia for mere stickering. Mr. Amelia is the victim of a vast and corrupt hate crime industry that is fueled both by material greed and by a seething and entirely genuine hatred of the native peoples of the British Isles. To that extent, we could say that the nation is in fact host to a hate crime of gargantuan nature and scope, but that is totally forbidden and now illegal to speak its name. Well, excellent article there. So true. Just gonna see what people are saying in the chat now. Make sure we're not shut down yet. That might have done it. All right, yeah, all my tabs finally loaded up here. But yeah, that's the situation there, I guess. They really like to slip these laws through, and it's up to us to notice them and to point it out and do at least something to fight back against it. And I'm sure once things get worse, other people will start noticing too, and they'll finally want to do something about it once it hits close to home for them. Once they realize that this increased cost of living and decreased life expectancy and quality of life, once that really hits home to them, then they're going to want to do something about it too. And you educating yourselves here and in other places and reading, you're going to be the one to educate them, and you will help them along, and then, you can work together with any people who are going to be on your side when shit hits the fan. So, that's the way that you got to think of it, really. But anyways, it was great for you all to come out here tonight. I hope you learned a lot. I'll try to make some posts about some of the things that I talked about here tonight. I know I don't make enough posts on social media, but, there's a lot of good writing in these articles that would be great to get this information out there. But thanks, Uncle Kenny, Octomom, Wardock, Roby, Uncle Kenny, Burn Slots, all the people who came out on Rumble. Everyone who came out on Entropy, Dia Goyam, good to see you. Here to help spread the light, Too Many Glocks, Rhea Hayes, Jonathan Ferguson, Too Many Glocks, Nick Larche, Ferguson, good to see you all. All right, I'll play you guys. I'll cover one more funner thing to leave it on a lighter note. As I said, a lot of us had fun at the Danger Cats comedy shows this weekend. They really tried to cancel them like a week or two ago. So they were performing at some other place like a week or two ago, but they tried to cancel them in Winnipeg, and they actually did get their shows shut down in a Yuck Yucks in Winnipeg. And Uncle Hack shows it over here.
Is facing backlash over some of the material in their acts, which has led to the cancellation of their shows across the country, including multiple nights here in Winnipeg. Yuck Yucks confirmed with CBC it will no longer host the group in Winnipeg and has taken them out of the lineup. It all stems from a video showing one of the members in the group at a show using residential schools as a punchline. The 2022 video recently began circulating on social media, causing an uproar. Comedy troupe Danger Cats is facing backlash over some of the material in their act.
So there you have it. And now here's the video in question, and you'll see the person who is trying their damnedest to get them canceled everywhere. And she is very relentless and won't stop. So this is the joke that went viral in order to get them canceled from one weekend of shows. But did they really get canceled? Because they're still performing in Winnipeg, and when they came to Niagara Falls this weekend, they not only sold out or near sold out 4 shows. I think the one that I was at was the only one that didn't sell out. But 4 shows, and they added another one, a 5th one on the Sunday. And they don't normally do that for Yuck Yuck. So I don't know how well your cancellation worked.
It's a temple, but in Leisha's case, I'd say it's more of an unmarked grave. She spit out more potential children than a dig site at a residential school. They say the body is a temple.
So it's literally just a roast joke. Like, the point of a roast joke is to make it as offensive as possible. Or it doesn't have to be as offensive, but as hard-hitting against your opponent so you could win and either get a shock applause or make people laugh. Doesn't matter, but a roast battle is sacred, and you should be able to say whatever you can in it in order to get in order to make people laugh. That's the point of a roast. You're supposed to let your guard down and say things that